Today I'm joined with Dr. David Michaels, who is an epidemiologist and professor at George Washington University. I want to start by asking you about something you've written about quite often and spoken about just now in the conference is doubt science and what that means and why people should know more about what is happening.
Thanks for that question, Leah, because that's a very important issue. I've written a couple of books on it. Doubt science is a strategy by polluters, manufacturers of dangerous chemicals to allow them to sell their dangerous product, to continue their dangerous activities, and really not worry about hurting the public. It's also an industry. There's a product defense industry. There are scientists, many of whom cut their teeth originally working for tobacco, but now work for the pesticide industry, the petrochemical industry, industries that make these dangerous products. The objective is not to say that these chemicals are safe, because they really can't say that. But what they do is they say there's too much uncertainty. We really can't do anything now, or we shouldn't do anything now, because the science is uncertain. But what they're doing is they are manufacturing doubt. That's why we call it doubt science. Sometimes also called the tobacco playbook or the plastics playbook, because these are the people who've done it for so long, so successfully.
I'm wondering if you could kind of put yourself in their shoes as well. Why would they be doing this, and to what end, if they know that these chemicals or these products are indeed dangerous?
You've asked a really interesting question. Going back to the tobacco industry or the asbestos industry, people ask me, if I were the head of the tobacco companies or the asbestos company, how would I sleep at night knowing that my product is killing people? I think people convince themselves, these leaders convince themselves that the science is uncertain. They can't admit to themselves that, yes, these are dangerous. Upton Sinclair, a famous writer, political candidate, famously said, "It's difficult to convince a man of something when his salary depends on him not believing it."
I guess my next question from that then is, this seems like a structural problem. There are incentives in place for these companies then to either really believe or manufacture misinformation for the public to not believe that these products are dangerous. What can we do to kind of move the system in the right direction or disincentivize these industries from manufacturing the doubt?
Right. The problem is our public health protections are based on this idea of presumed innocence. We've written our laws. We approach these chemicals essentially because this is what the industry wants us to do, is to think the same way about chemicals that we do about people accused of crimes in our judicial system. We think when someone's accused of a crime, they're innocent until proven guilty. And that idea of presumed innocence is then manipulated by chemical producers to say, let's treat this chemical safe until we can prove definitively that it's dangerous. Of course, it's very difficult to do that. We can't do randomized clinical trials involving humans and dangerous chemicals. We have to use epidemiology and toxicology. And it's often difficult to show, but when we have good evidence that something causes harm, industry still says it's not enough. And so what we have to do is demand that chemicals be treated as guilty until proven innocent. Until you can show a chemical is safe, we shouldn't be exposing our kids to these chemicals. We shouldn't be exposing ourselves to these chemicals. The other thing that's really important is to recognize that we're never going to have enough science, and we're far from having enough science to understand how dangerous some of these chemicals are. We talked at the conference about PFAS chemicals, and there's well over 10,000 different compounds in this category. We have good evidence really on a handful, less than 5 of them. We're never going to have strong evidence about 99.999% of these chemicals. So we have to say, if a very similar chemical looks dangerous, then this chemical is dangerous too, and we have to protect ourselves from it.
Can you just give a short explainer of why these chemicals are dangerous to us in the first place?
Well, all these chemicals, chemicals are powerful, have powerful impacts on the body. It depends on which chemical it is, but our bodies aren't meant to be exposed to these different long chain polymers or the fluorinated chemicals that never break down in the environment. We know from studies that they're causing cancer or, in some cases, birth defects. There's a range of activities of these chemicals in the body, and we need to protect ourselves from them.
My last question to you then is just on that point of what can we do, since it seems like such an invisible assault on our bodies and the systems in place there's a lot of inertia there where I don't see especially the current federal administration changing a lot of these policies in the near term. So what can we all do as individuals to protect ourselves, our families, our communities?
And it's real tough. An individual can't look at their shampoo bottle and understand all those chemicals that are going into that. What we need to be doing is to demand that our governments, our regulators, the public health agencies better protect us. Right now, it's tough to do that on the federal level, though we still need to be making those demands. But right now, we can effectively do that on the state level, on the local level, saying certain chemicals should not be allowed in products. Companies should not be allowed to pollute the same way that they're polluting now. And that's what we need to focus on.
I think my last question on this is because of the misinformation that's out there and the doubt science that you focused on, I'm wondering if there's also anything you would advise for the everyday person to be able to understand or have more literacy over the misinformation that they're being surrounded by.
Well, certainly it's to be skeptical about scientists who have any connection with the industry. When industry trots out scientists to say this chemical is safe or there just aren't enough studies to show that it's dangerous, demand to know what their relationship is to the companies that make these products. And frankly, if they are conflicted, if they do have a financial relationship with these companies, the information they're putting out there really has to be, if not discarded, certainly demoted in how seriously you take it. We need independent scientists to give us independent views to understand really what these chemicals could be doing to us.
That's a great tip. Thank you so much.
Well, Leah, thank you so much.
I appreciate it.